Speaking of work on the Hill, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll. I know she's got a packed schedule, so we're super proud to be able to have her featured on this annual meeting. Kim Driscoll is the 73rd Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth, but the first to be part of an all-women executive team of Massachusetts. So props, congratulations. We are just so honored. Since taking office, Lieutenant Governor Driscoll, she spearheaded several administration priorities and initiatives, including significant involvement in the state's affordable housing production, economic development, improvements in the public education system, and is serving as a liaison to cities and towns across Massachusetts, which is due to her extensive knowledge working as mayor of Salem. Prior to Beacon Hill, Driscoll served for 17 years as the mayor of Salem, where she was a strong champion of bicycling infrastructure. She helped expand bike paths and trails. I went to many ribbon cuttings that featured her and her team. And she was responsible for bringing the Blue Bikes bike share system to the city. So she understands what it means to get bikes to everybody. And she's a proud graduate of Salem State University. Lieutenant Governor, it is my distinct honor to welcome you here and hand over the mic to you.
Thank you so much, Gail. And it's great to be with you guys. And you have got a rock star lineup of legislators who are so supportive of ways that we can build a safe and I think strong, not only bike culture, but bike infrastructure. And so it's great to be piggybacking with them at your meeting. And thank you for all of that you're doing to really make sure we're not only advocating, but we're investing in action and programs. Governor Healy and I feel so fortunate to be in these roles because I think it gives us an opportunity, obviously, to work on influencing resources and shaping policies in a way that we think can really benefit how people get around in a state with 7 million people in 351 cities and towns. Like, transportation is so key to our connections, and together we're all commuting and traveling and visiting and every day sharing roads, rails, waterways with each other as we move together. And I know that firsthand from my mayoral days. And I think we really both want to make a commitment to support people in Massachusetts getting around all of our cities and towns with the resources they need to sort of deliver that connection. And that definitely means investing in, creating, and supporting all methods of transportation, most assuredly bikes. I was really proud as mayor of Salem, not only to adopt a complete streets program, but really to invest in it. Multimodal transportation options help communities design streets that are accessible to all. I believe that very strongly. And we know when residents are able to walk, bike, take public transportation, or travel by car, those are the communities that are more livable. And as we're thinking about the work ahead in this role, being able to shape some of those policies with the perspective of what's happening on the ground is really important. And it also would help showcase some of the differences. Salem is a smaller, dense community, 8 square miles. I like to say we've got roads that were built for horse and buggy as a nearly 400-year-old community. Just today, we were out in Amherst for a cabinet meeting and talking about how the needs of communities can be the same yet different. Everybody needs to be able to get around in a more efficient way. But running a system for public transportation in Amherst and in parts of Western Mass and rural areas is different than in places that might be a little bit more urban. So we really want to better understand how we can work in partnership with communities at the local level, whether you're a historic, dense urban community or a more rural community, to get people from point A to point B, whether that's a job or school, and ideally using all modes of transportation, particularly ways we can improve public transportation. Part of this year's budget includes funding for RTAs. It's an innovation fund. I think the RFPs for proposals are due later this month in December, encouraging our regional transportation agencies to work with us to identify opportunities to invest in more innovative ways to get people around, whether that's e-bikes, micro transit options, shuttles. I was really proud in Salem that we had bike share, car share, ride share, Salem Skipper, over 1 million rides on Salem Skipper, anywhere you want to go in your community for $1. Improved pedestrian access to get people around. I think, we're also really thinking about land use policies. Many of you know the MBTA Communities Act is in full go mode, trying to ensure we're building more dense housing near transit as a means to support the type of housing we need in our communities. We just definitely don't have enough housing at all levels, market rate, affordable, housing for seniors that's more accessible for folks who want to age in place, housing for young families, young adults our biggest outmigration of people in Massachusetts is 26 to 35-year-olds who just can't afford to live here. The key to that is going to be building housing. And why am I talking about housing to the MassBike Annual Meeting? Because that land use policy is going to help us support the infrastructure that we need to link like sort of the model to support lifestyles. And that assuredly includes, bike lanes, support for bike share programs, creating a place where sharing the road should just feel second nature. We just had our winter prep meeting. It's a meeting where all the state agencies come together, and we have our state meteorologist who kind of predicts what they think is going to be happening with the weather. We're in El Nino, which is not great, but not terrible. And one of the queries that came up is, hey, how are we prepared for making sure we're clearing bike lanes? Now, most of the bike lanes are actually owned on local roads. But there are a few that are state-owned roads. And like, what's the priority? How do we make sure we've got the right equipment in place so that we can make it possible for folks to bike all year round in places that we really need every transportation option we can. So I want you to know we're trying to make the sorts of investments that can support the work on the ground in communities. And I think you have a commitment around our excitement for bikes, particularly e-bikes. I want us to really think about ways that we can find this more accessible transportation. I like to always say e-bikes are like a sweat-free ride. I know there's some purists who are like, no to e-bikes, but it really can be a way for longer distances and to make transportation a little bit more equitable for everyone. I say that as my aging knees are aching right now. So just please know that we are trying to find ways to make investments to support Massachusetts, the biking community, whether that's rails and trails, as was mentioned, ways that we can connect those spaces. I'm really proud of, we think about the master plan we had for biking in our community. It was tied towards downtown being the hub and finding easy ways to get people in and out between communities and outside. And also thinking about, as I mentioned, regional transportation, including e-bikes, bicycle improvements, repair, storage. We now know that as part of the tax bill that was packaged, that was adopted by the legislature, commuter transit benefits have been increased. So that means e-bikes, bike improvement, storage. These are deductible commuter expenses. We know, I think it's $750 in expenses if you bike to work. You can deduct that now. We're trying to invest in Chapter 90, not just in the resources to build out bike infrastructure, but also partner with our communities to make sure they know how to do that. What are some of the equipment to clear bike lanes? How can we make sure we've got the engineering and the civic partnerships to ensure we're thinking about cyclists and pedestrians, even though Chapter 90 is thought of as a roadway infrastructure program. And the last piece I'll pick up on is, we love the idea of having all kinds of modes of transportation, making communities more accessible, but we also know we need to prioritize multimodal transportation and design cities in a way that can promote cycling and walking so we can achieve our climate goals. These efforts are so important, particularly for coastal communities, for places that we know are going to be impacted by rising seas. If people can choose more sustainable options and decrease our reliance on cars, we know that's going to be overall a really, obviously a really good way to help us decrease carbon emissions, air pollution, and congestion. And I think many of you know our Secretary of Transportation, Monica Tibbetts-Nutt. She is, I think, a real enthusiast for thinking about ways we can impactfully help communities ensure that they not only have a brighter, environment as we move forward, but a cleaner environment. And building out that infrastructure is sort of all of our jobs. So just want to, again, thank you for the work you're doing, both as advocates, as folks who have on the ground experience. Often many of you help with technical assistance when we're in communities trying to think about ways to advance an accessible and bike-friendly agenda. And I know we wouldn't be where we are without the coalition that all of you present in Massachusetts, and help us make sure we're making the sorts of decisions that people can benefit from, of all ages, in all places. And just grateful to be with you this evening.
Awesome. Lieutenant Governor, it's such an honor to have you. And I'm so proud of the team that you've been able to build at the administration. And I think Massachusetts is well poised. We've seen this in the legislative leadership right now. We see this in the administration right now. We see this in the advocacy level. It is no wonder that the League of American Bicyclists has named us the #1 bike-friendly state in the country. And I'm confident that we will retain that based on the work that we've got going here. And I certainly appreciate the fact that you brought up all the overlap of the existential challenges that your administration is facing right now. There is not one isolated issue. And I certainly appreciate how you see how bicycling could be not the solution, but a solution to fit its way into all of these housing, elder care, retaining equity, and all the rest. I have one question for you, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot.
Not at all.
I promise no press, but I can't help but take the opportunity. I like to ask this to some of my guests. Very open-ended, not scripted. I'm curious, what is your bike joy?
Oh, wow. Well, I love the new, it's not, I guess it's not so new anymore, but we have a newer trail in Salem that goes all the way from downtown Marblehead to downtown Salem. And I love that particular ride because I did it a lot when my kids were younger, but it wasn't together, right? You had to get off and get on the road, and it was just not the rail that it is today. And I was actually just out on it. I played pickleball on a Sunday, and then I said, oh, let's take the bike ride out to Marblehead. There's a great little pizza shop and an ice cream stop at the end of it. So the kids would get that far, get them refueled, and then get back on. And now we do it. One, you don't have to do it on a road, any part of it. And two, there's many people on it. Like, what a difference from, just a few years ago when, it was something you did, but you would be the only one at times on the rail. And so for me, it's got great memories. And I always feel like I'm exploring on it because there's a bunch of green space around it. In the middle of a place like Salem and Marblehead, you can almost feel like you're in the middle of New Hampshire for a few miles anyways. So that's one of them for sure.
I love it. That's a great answer. Thank you so much. And for those of you who haven't been up to Salem, come on out. We have the Border to Boston Trail we're working on. It is a wonderful place to ride. For the most part, you can bring your bike on the commuter rail if you're coming from the neck of the woods. But yeah, and Lieutenant Governor, let us know how we can help you out. And we've got your back, and we're super grateful for all the work that you and Governor Healy are up to.
Thanks, Galen. Please know, like MassBike members who want to engage with the administration to support better bicycling. MassDOT does have an office that works on ideas for bike safety and bike infrastructure. I saw some of that in the chat. That's why I'm mentioning it. MassDOT's deputy in this office, if you don't know, is Jacqueline Youngblood. I'm not sure if Jacqueline's on, but she chairs the Mass Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Board. Mm-hmm. She meets regularly with the Secretary of Transportation and can really get your input to the top. So we can certainly follow up with more contact info there. But it is something that I know that is important to us to hear from you, even if we're not able to all, right away get to a policy issue or fix a project. We want to get them on the list and better understand how we can be good partners.
Right. Thank you so much for joining, and really appreciate your time tonight.
All right. Good night, guys. Thank you.